This last week has been absolutely insane for the MCU and Marvel. I mean, obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine had the biggest opening for an R-rated movie ever. It made a bunch of money in its first weekend. But then, of course, we had San Diego Comic-Con, where it was unveiled a bunch of new information, the new Avengers movies, as well as the new big bad in the entire MCU. And more importantly, who's going to be playing the new big bad? That's right, Doctor Doom is coming into the MCU, and of all people, Robert Downey Jr. is playing him. Now, if you've been keeping up with the MCU, you know that this wasn't the original plan behind Marvel Studios and what they were thinking. So in this video, I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on how I feel about Robert Downey Jr. playing Doctor Doom, and why this all kind of came about, and how I feel about it all. But before we get into all that, what's good, guys? It's DemiM7. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about all this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're awesome. Now, before we get into all the Robert Downey Jr. stuff, we first have to talk about how we got to this point, how we got to Doctor Doom being the main bad guy for the MCU going forward. So we really have to just rewind a few years back with Jonathan Majors and Kang the Conqueror. Now, again, if you're a big fan of the MCU, what I'm about to tell you is not going to be anything new to you, but there's just a quick recap of what's been going on and how we got to Doctor Doom. See, the original plan for the MCU was to have Kang the Conqueror be the next big bad guy for the MCU after Thanos. We got our first introduction to Jonathan Majors as Kang, or at least a variant of Kang, in the season finale of season 1 of Loki. And after that, we started getting some post-credit scenes, some teasers, some bits and pieces of Kang, and eventually him being the next big bad guy. The post-credit scene for Shang-Chi, and then of course we got Ant-Man Quantumania, where we just saw Kang in his entirety. And then of course we saw Victor Timely in season 2 of Loki. My point is, there was a huge setup to have Kang and the Kang Dynasty unfold in the MCU. So much so that the Kang Dynasty was supposed to be the next Avengers movie. It was literally announced. It was supposed to be the Kang Dynasty and then Secret Wars. However, what really threw a wrench in all these plans was unfortunately what Jonathan Majors went through with all of his legal troubles. Jonathan Majors was found guilty on assault and harassment charges towards his ex-girlfriend or his ex-wife, I can't remember which one it was, and that's what caused Marvel and Marvel Studios to drop him completely. Now, here's where one of my biggest problems with all this, with all the Doctor Doom stuff and Kang, kind of being put to the wayside, here's one of my biggest problems. Why not just recast him? I mean, of all the characters, Kang should be the easiest one to replace. I mean, he's a multiversal villain, which means there are infinite versions of him. There's no way all of them look the same. And what makes this so much more frustrating is the fact that we've seen Marvel do this with other characters in their universe, like Rhodey, or even now with Harrison Ford. Now, there were some rumors that they were trying to recast Kang, but there was never like any solid evidence or proof of that. I don't know. It just feels like to me, if they really wanted to just recast him, I think they could have. I think they could have continued down this Kang Dynasty storyline that they've been working so hard to build up. They just decided not to. So with that all out of the way, Marvel had to think of something. They had to think of a new idea, something different to get people back on the Marvel train and to find some way to go forward. And just like the rumors about recasting Kang, there was a lot of rumors of who the next new villain could potentially be. The two biggest names that we were hearing get thrown out was guys like Galactus and Doctor Doom. That leads us to Comic-Con and unveiling not only Doctor Doom being the villain, not only Doctor Doom being the headliner in the next Avengers movie, but Robert Downey Jr. playing him. Now look, I'll be completely honest with you. When I first heard this news, my gut reaction was hype. I was actually pretty hyped for it. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., the guy that laid the foundation for the MCU as Iron Man and his best role that he's ever had in his entire career, he was coming back to be one of the most iconic villains in Marvel history. There was a part of me that really felt like that was a really nice twist of fate, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to end up regardless. But after thinking about it over the last few days, I'm not as crazy about the decision anymore. Now, sure, RDJ coming back as Doctor Doom provides a lot of shock value and everyone's been talking about it, but they really couldn't just cast anybody else. Robert Downey Jr. ended his legacy as Iron Man in the MCU perfectly with Endgame. His role, his performances, and what he has meant to the MCU will last forever. And with that being said, I just feel like they could have brought somebody new into the table, someone new into the fold that could have made this character their own, and they could have made their own legacy of sorts. And since the official announcement, we've been getting more information about what is apparently, kind of woven into this deal, with Robert Downey Jr. apparently getting paid much more than $80 million for these next two Avengers movies. On top of that, apparently apparently he would only return and do this role if the Russo brothers would be directing the next two Avengers films. Which, for me personally, I'm actually not that mad about. I mean, look, the Russos have had their best work with the Avengers movies. All three movies that they've directed in the MCU, Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, and then of course Endgame, have been great. And every movie that they've done since then hasn't been. As much as I would have loved to have seen someone else take on these Avengers movies, this is what they do really, really well, so I can't really complain about it. But yeah, he's getting paid a bunch of money. He wanted the Russos to come back. He's getting a private jet, and there's a bunch of other details apparently. But all this just kind of feels like a last-ditch effort for the MCU to really get everyone's attention back on this universe. Rather than really focusing on all the new characters that they have, all these new actors that they've got, they're just bringing back an icon, admittedly an icon, for a completely different role. Now, narratively, how it's all supposed to work, how it's all supposed to make sense, I couldn't tell you, but I'd be lying to you if I said that my curiosity wasn't super high. So that's pretty much it. That wraps up all the big news that we got over the last week. Please let me know in the comments what you think about all this, and until next time, peace.